Zola, bravest of Leonardo's apprentices, leaps from the tower of San Francesco wearing his master's wings. At night my master dreams time and heaven. I, his apprentice, dream nothing. I am the mirror that gives him back, the sigh breathed into his mouth at night, youth that saves him from his age. I am salvation, the angel beating copper wings. My body strong as woven reeds, built to remember his body when it is dust. A splinter of memory lodged under my heart, my shoulder blades, where now the wings sprout madly tied with silk, the harness casing my skin, woven chrysalis. I leaped. I flew. There was a moment of lift. I thought I could veer left or right, soar between spires, past the reds and blues of cathedral windows, leave the cracked ground. Leave him, an old, glitter-eyed man who imagines, luridly, carnally, all he cannot do himself. Then I fell. Clutching at time, I went down, a crunch of bones, stone. Earth had the last word. I did not die. He held my head, he prayed for me, I sucked my life back through his mouth, his sigh saved me for my age. Now we are even. The later Auden. In the evening wine, then vodka. Auden, grievously mathematical, lays his head down at the end of each apportioned day. The guests must be gone by 9:30. Timetable ticking off the fly-blown minutes, he gets hungry only when the clock strikes the appropriate hour, lonely only between nightfall and morning. Wrist shaking, fingers yellow-stained, he sucks his cuffs, murmurs madly that all things are roads, that God is a comfort, that he should have been a desiccated bishop, eyeing the choir. His voice dies out in the muffled cloth. Reed-bent but hopeful, he encounters each day's white wasteland. The pen strikes through, mapping the way to an enduring solitude, age-dimmed. Wine for speech, vodka for oblivion, he rifles through the spattered sheets, reflecting that language still fails when faced with such an ending. Putting this down to faults of construction, he prepares for bed. Lies in the dark, his hair thatching for an unsheltered head, muttering, suspicious, watchful of all human love. The Sineater. These were funeral biscuits, dipped in wine, sin taken into the body dense and dark. Lodged there in the stomach, passed through the blood, coloring the urine but never quite pissed away. Sins were his best and dearest food, and he lived by promising salvation to others as priests do. But he lived in the ragged fields. His breath rattled through his withered chest, his fingernails bled frequently, and his eyes were yellow as a cat's and shone in the dark. Children cowered before him, but he blessed them all the same, his fingers fluttering over their shaking pallid heads, their hair dry as straw. He speaks only Latin and a garble of nothing. He speaks the chicken bones and dirty rags the villagers throw out at the edges of town. When he dies, they will strip his flesh carefully with their little knives, and they will burn his body and throw the ashes into the river that flows away from the town, and they will do this in agreement with each other, so his body buried will not nourish any part of their crop, in case a morsel of his eaten sins were to pass their pale, sanctified lips, and so into their hearts. They are a fearful people, living as they do between the river and the wood, and who can blame them if they are cautious with their food? Old Ophelia. Before she was entirely carried away by the flood, she called out the litany of her long life, clutching a red handkerchief and a few flowers. I have seen it, she cried over the crashing waves and the green swell, the fish, tin cans, toxic waste, and infinite orange objects, all the netted, cast-up final communications of water. I have seen the rushed burials, the deserted suburbs and cracked streets, the old who remember the uses of words but lie about it, the crazed, ownerless house pets running down alleyways, all those terrible small dogs. I have seen my husband ride by on the back of my neighbor, and both of them wore dark suits and silver crowns. My husband lost his front teeth and combed the whole city looking for them, found them clasped in the fat fist of a small boy. How beautiful I was then between the wars with my slips showing. How beautiful I was, she shrieked. I was the voice calling in the wilderness. I was the beginning of the day, the seasonal sale, the lunch special before 3 p.m. I have seen great rifts opening in the ground. I have seen the end of writing and the poets burned in the miracles of modern architecture. I have seen the sun go down for the last time and rise again from force of habit. I have seen generations abolish themselves and men made unnecessary by obeying orders. I have churned up 12 children and done without them in the end, and I am resigned to the new nightfall. Oh, the days that I have seen. And she threw the flowers and the handkerchief to a group of children standing on the bank and was carried away. The children pocketed these treasures and wondered what the old woman had meant. Except for the rising water, everything was fine. Nick Drake and Emily Dickinson meet in the afterlife. They are cautious virgins, and unfriendly as they have always been. These two never loved the flesh, so death is already peculiarly their own. Breathless, they look each other up and down. Her eyes that famous residual sherry, his blank as stones on the riverbed. They both wear white now, though she always has. They feel awkward in their wings, find the light brighter than they wished, unfettered consciousness a terror for those whose art was the limit. This is to say they recognize each other. Neither expected this. The end, they thought, would mean a sealed box, a final solitude, the heart intact as an egg, forever. He told her about the thin grey light when the songs came halting in pieces, and she told him about her furtive sleep and 1,000 poems hidden in a drawer. Blind twins facing away from each other, photograph 1850. When we were children, our father gave me a chestnut, and her lace. This was to make us know the differences in the world. What is made yields, what is grown stands. It endures, it refuses. We stand together, blindness our single property. I honor the differences between us. Many lace makers are blind, he said, a simple, avaricious man, and their fingers know the knots the thread better than eyes do. He touched my eyelids, blessed me, then hers, though that I only guess. Her hands wither, her hair falling athwart my face at night, the only touch I know, bound together in permanent twilight, fingers laced.